Hi, this is Anthony Lighthall. Thank you for joining me today on this podcast entitled From Dreams to Actions, where we talk about business goals, promoting positive energy, and following your dreams. On today's episode, we are going to discuss how to be comfortable being uncomfortable. Let that sink in for a little bit because I know it probably hits you, and most people probably think it may be like an oxymoron or wow, this is like a play on words. But how do you be comfortable being uncomfortable? Let's go ahead and get into it. It's overall a mindset. I'm going to talk about getting out of your comfort zone. I'm going to share a couple of different examples of things that have happened to me or things that have happened around the world. Certain people you should be surrounding yourself with, setbacks and failure. But overall, how do you become comfortable being in uncomfortable type of situations or settings? And that's what I really want to talk about today on the show. And the first thing is, let's just, start off with this is the comfort zone. Everyone has a comfort zone. Everyone has that neighborhood they're fine with going to, or those circle of friends that they surround themselves with, or that job that it may be boring to some people, but some people they're just comfortable doing it. And it's one of those repetitive jobs where it's like, hey, I know how to do this, or I was taught this at an early age, and I'm comfortable. You ever hear people say that? Oh, I'm good, I'm comfortable. Well, being comfortable is good. Sometimes it can save you. It could save your life, if you're in unknown territory. But sometimes it can hurt you. It can stifle your creativity. It can stop you from your growth and getting out of your comfort zone and getting you in an unfamiliar area where you are growing and stretching yourself, as I'll say, into the unknown, into something else new that you were probably never exposed to. So that's the overall situation with comfort zones is great to have them, but also learn, hey, I want to try that. Hey, I want to go over there. Hey, I want to take a calculated risk. And I want to become unfamiliar with something and kind of learn or surround myself with people I've never probably surrounded myself with before. A lot of people that are successful have been successful by putting themselves in uncomfortable situations. By, a lot of sports references with, taking that last shot or trying to dunk or, if you're playing hockey, trying to make that goal or trying something new with your hockey stick, with the puck. It's all different. It's all uncomfortable. I'll also share with a baby. A baby crawls, and then when they start walking, like really pay attention to them. They are uncomfortable. They're whining. They're crying because they're like, "What the heck? I'm trying to learn how to walk, and I keep falling on my butt, or I'm scraping my knee, or I'm hitting my head on the coffee table. What's going on?" But they're uncomfortable because they're learning something new and they're wobbling and they're shaking and they're stretching out their hands for balance. And that's the same thing you have to envision when you're uncomfortable. You are wobbling, you're shaking, you probably want to whine and vent to someone or maybe even complain because this is uncomfortable for you. But as you continue to do it and you're consistent and you start to learn, like, okay, what am I learning from being uncomfortable right now? So that's what I really want to talk about throughout this whole podcast of being uncomfortable. I'll also share about, we all went through this with COVID. It, I don't know who wasn't uncomfortable. Whether I remember stepping out, when COVID was really first hitting, and I live in a very busy city, and stepping out and going outside, and there were like no cars. That was eerie. It was very uncomfortable to see that, where I'm like, how long is this going to last? How is it going to affect the economy? How is it going to affect business, my job? People that are used to going out to the bars, to the clubs, to restaurants, mingling with people. It was very uncomfortable for them. People that are very extroverted and like to be out, very uncomfortable for them. But if you take a look and pay attention and listen, a lot of businesses started during COVID. A lot of people say, yeah, once 2020 hit, we were just indoors and there was nothing else. So I started producing content. I started, you know, reading. I learned French when, we were all indoors, and I just started, picking up different books or going online and learning how to, speak another language. A lot of things that were when a time when people were very uncomfortable, things were uncertain, people took that uncomfortability and they looked at it like, okay, what can I do right now? What's in my power? What's in my hands? And pay attention to that. A lot of things, creating businesses, side hustles. I feel like that was really big when COVID hit because everybody was indoors and they were just buying different machines and trying new things. You had all this time. Uh, and so that's an example, with COVID being uncomfortable and creating something new. Not everybody did something new, but majority of people really did start a business or learn something, a new skill during COVID. And, they're still seeing the fruits of their labor, during that time of uncertainty. Let me share an example of networking. I know networking can be uncomfortable for a lot of people, even people who are extroverts and people who like to talk to people. But sometimes those people only like talking to the people they know. They only like speaking to that certain demographic. A woman only likes speaking to a crowd of women. A male in his 25 only likes speaking to males who are 25 and who were jocks in high school and loves talking about sports. But not everybody can be in a room where you don't know who you're talking to. You're talking to CEOs. You're running into PhDs. You're running into faculty or instructors at educational institutions. You're talking to the marketing director of a bank. You never know. It's a melting pot of people and professions, and sometimes that makes people uncomfortable because they don't know how to relate to those people. They don't know how to talk to those people. They don't know how to break the ice. So, as an example, during a networking event, let's say you see someone in the corner that you've kind of either followed on social media or, uh, on LinkedIn or something like that, or they're just a professional. They're up there and they're just surrounded by a bunch of people because everybody knows who this person is. And you're just kind of like shy because you're like, how do I break this ice? How do I go and talk to this person? And now you have an opportunity. This person is, maybe getting a drink of water from a water fountain or something and not surrounded by anybody. You need to get out of your comfort zone and speak to this person. You need to figure out what can you compliment, what can you talk about to really engage with this individual, especially if you want to be part of their network because you know how worthy it is. And using networking as an example, um, how do you connect with people? How do you relate to people? Get out of your comfort zone. If you don't go to networking events or you haven't, try and go to one. Try to start with one that a networking event. Sometimes they have different themes. Go to an event where it's something that you're comfortable talking about, or some type of convention that you're a part of, or something that's part of a hobby that you like, or maybe a profession that you're in, or something you want to get into, and then start going to other events that you probably would never go to, but you may meet new people and expand and grow off of being uncomfortable. Okay, so what's the benefits of being in the unknown? A few things here are you challenge yourself. Getting out of your comfort zone challenges yourself. That's number one. It's something that is foreign to you. You've never been, in this neighborhood before. You've never talked to uh, this religion of individuals who have this certain faith or belief, or someone who has these political views. You don't have to argue with them, or you don't have to always agree with them, but have an ear, learn off of each other. That's how I am. I always have a neutral mindset. I have my own beliefs and, things I believe in, things I like to do, or certain hobbies. But I also like to hear what other people like to do and what are their passions, what do they believe in. And we can have an intellectual conversation about that. And that gets me out of my comfort zone because then I get to hear from them and talk with them. And then when I talk with someone else that may have the same viewpoints as the person I spoke to, I can refer back to that. Like, oh, I did. I spoke to Greg, and it's a person I ran into at a networking event, and they shared the same belief on that political view or that religion. I want to hear your take. People love being on the mic, as I say, and bragging or talking about something that they really believe in. And again, it just gets you out of your comfort zone. Just have an ear, just listen to people. And so again, with the benefits, it's really helping you to discover new talents about yourself and anything that's kind of laying dormant because you've never shook it up or been a positive disruptor for yourself. Now you're able to grow and able to, wow, I kind of really like doing that. I wish I'd learned about that when I was in my 20s, and now I'm, almost, 45 years old, but it's never too late, but that helps you get out of your comfort zone. And that's kind of like the being uncomfortable is almost like the launching pad. Let's try something new. Let's launch into something and see what we learn from this. Now, also, you're always going to learn something, but it doesn't mean being uncomfortable is something that you like or something that you're getting uh, I don't want to say used to, but something that you are trying to adapt to doesn't mean that you're going to like it. But you wouldn't have known if you didn't like it if you didn't try it, if you didn't get out of your comfort zone. You see what I mean? So you have to try it in order to have an opinion about it. I always say I try it once and then I'll give an opinion about it. I can't knock something that I don't try. When I tell somebody, "Hey, come with me," or "Let's go on a hike," or "Let's go fishing," or "Let's do some type of hobby that I like," and someone was like, "Oh no, there's a lot of bugs out there," or "Aren't you afraid of bears?" Or "Oh, you got to be outside. You're all sweaty." It's like, have you tried it before? No, I haven't. I just kind of, okay, well, you can't knock it until you try it. So get uncomfortable and try it. Get your hiking boots on and let's try something different, you know? So again, getting out of your comfort zone, it just expands your mind so that you are able to make decisions and opinions on certain things that, hey, I remember trying that. I really liked it. And that's how I started volunteering for this organization. Or you know what? I did try that. Fishing's boring and that's not for me. And so not to try it anymore because you took the initiative to get yourself uncomfortable. Another thing too, the benefits of being in the unknown is being a risk taker and calculated risk. You're not just going to jump off a building, you know, without a parachute or even jump off of the building with a bungee cord without doing testing or watching other people do it. But taking calculated risk is very important as well. But the benefit is it makes you look very attractive. People like risk takers. People like the bad boy. Someone who rides on a motorcycle or someone who, takes the lead on something. It's that confidence, and it makes you attractive, not just in a sexual way or like a heartthrob, but as a candidate, going up against other candidates for a job. You're able to talk about how you took a risk, whether that risk worked out or not. That risk means that you're a leader and you're not afraid to take a lead. That's very attractive, for a lot of people. In relationships, whether with a friend or with a network, I like people that take a risk. That pushes me. I would say I'm a risk taker. I take calculated risk and I like trying different things. And so being surrounded by people like that, that's attractive to me in being around them. And then lastly, let's say as an employee, you know, um, being a leader in the boardroom, speaking up, being uncomfortable, you're junior or middle manager and you're speaking in front of C-suite, the CEOs, the CHROs, the, CEO of, or chief of technology, and you're speaking up. That can be very uncomfortable and intimidating when you're around such uh, a seasoned party of individuals, and you're saying something and speaking up on something you believe in. That's attractive. People respect that. So definitely be a risk taker. Take those calculated risks and get yourself in uncomfortable situations. And lastly, that's how a lot of successful people, that we look up to have been successful. Whatever define success is, that's how they've been labeled as successful, because they've gotten out of their comfort zone and they were risk takers. Okay, something to think about. Let me share another example of a time when I was working for an employer, and the task was asked by my VP to put together data, or really take a look at this data for salaries across a couple of departments. And it was actually a request from some of the leadership to do this. And so I'm not strong in data analytics. I'm not a data scientist. You know, the pivot tables and the charts and all of that, it can get very overwhelming for me. I've done certain things with data, but it's very minimal. You know, send out a survey, read the surveys, see where the trends are, the data. But when you're really getting into the weeds of data, there's so much you can do on an Excel spreadsheet or with certain platforms or softwares out there. And so after my VP mentioned what needed to be done and what the request was, I just raised my hand like a crazy person. You know, I raised my hand. I was like, I'll do it. You know, when he asked who wants to be part of this or who wants to help me out with this, I was like, I'll do it. And then shortly after, another colleague of mine, you know, raised his hand. So now it's like I got a teammate. Cool. And this person was probably more savvy in the technology than I was, especially, and I was still new, you know, with this organization. And so, long story short, we worked together and, you know, scheduled meetings to really talk about the data, or, okay, how come this isn't adding up with the salaries, or, you know, is this right? Let's take a look at the benchmarking. I was uncomfortable, but then I slowly got comfortable with it because I had a partner to work on it with. And then I got comfortable because I was like, I'm learning. And this was something I raised my hand to show that I'm a risk taker, and I took the lead to my VP. That's huge. That's attractive, like I said. And then, you know, after I'd left that position or that job, I had something to talk about during my interviews. You know, tell me about a time when you took a risk. Perfect. You know, tell me about uh, a lot of the times, what are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Perfect. I'll talk about my weakness, but I'll also talk about how I took a risk with, you know, putting together this data. And then I learned from that, and I worked with, you know, someone, and, you know, shared that data with the leaders. I got something to talk about. So again, it all comes back with being uncomfortable, excuse me, and being able to take that risk, because in the long term or the long run, it's definitely going to help you, uh, you know, to really just expand and grow, as I've mentioned. Another thing that I would be conscious of and think about is your circle. Who do you surround yourself with? Do you surround yourself with the same people that you grew up with on the block? Or have you expanded and diversified not just your network, but your friendships and relationships with other people who have lived in different areas of the city, of the world, you know, and you're learning from them, and they're pushing you because they've came from humble beginnings or they've came from different backgrounds, and you're like, wow, okay, I'm learning from that person. I didn't have it as bad as I thought I did, or wow, I have it really good compared to what this person is telling me, or how did they get to the position or the level that they are at, because I'm kind of on the same path as they were 10 years ago. You know, surround yourself with the right circle. You know, I'm not saying to, you know, leave your friends and forget where you came from. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about continuing to diversify your relationships and people that you connect with. That's really, really important. And that gets you out of your comfort zone as well. But man, how do I meet these new people? I've met a lot of people through school and at work, but I'm just meeting this person at a networking event, or just meeting this person on the street, or we just have a casual conversation. We're both at the coffee shop. And that can really help you when you have a really good circle. As I've mentioned in my previous podcast, you know, your network is your net worth, and you definitely have to, you know, build that network of people to, you know, make sure that you are accomplishing those things and continuing to be successful in your eyes, professionally and personally. I've been mentioning the term success. Success is your own definition, whether it's money, whether it's status, whether it's how many likes you get on social media. Success is your own definition. I don't care what anyone says. Uh, so let's dive into this with success. I also believe, in my own opinion, you have your own, but this is mine. There's enough success to go around for everyone. It's up to you as an individual to go after that success. Let me share another example. Let's talk about this podcast. You know how many people already talk about these topics that I'm talking about? Plenty of people. How do you think I started this? How do you think I was encouraged and uh what's the other word? Encouraged and motivated to do a podcast like this? Because I listen to podcasts with similar topics. But guess what? Those individuals that I listen to may have a different audience. I may speak to the audience of 25 to 35-year-olds, single people, maybe trying to start a family, fresh grads, early in their career, trying to get into management positions. But that other person that does guest speaking and gets paid hundreds of thousands of dollars may speak to a more seasoned audience. Individuals who have their degrees, went back for their PhDs, they're, managers, getting into director, maybe PhDs. That audience. I may speak to an audience of the LGBTQ community or African American, Latino community, where someone else may speak to just a male dominant community. So what I'm getting at is there's enough success for everyone. You just have to figure out what is your success and what makes you successful in your own eyes. And then people are going to say, wow, that person's really doing it out here. They're successful. It's not about the money. Sometimes it's not about the likes. It's whatever you feel success is. And that's what I wanted to really, when I talk about success, it's my own definition. And you have your own definition of that as well. But going back to this podcast example, I didn't let anything or anyone stop me. And I was uncomfortable. I took the initiative to do it. I wanted to get on the mic. I feel like I'm a really good public speaker. I can improve, of course. I'm not the greatest, but I've spoken at various symposiums and at colleges and to college students or high schoolers or whoever, and I'm comfortable speaking. But now, when I was starting this, I was a little uncomfortable doing it because I'm like, I'm not just speaking to a crowd, I'm speaking to the world. I don't know who's going to be watching this. I don't know who I'm going to be touching with the words and the content that I'm creating. I'm speaking to a lot of people right now. And that's why I don't really pay attention too much on the analytics of my podcast. I just put things out and maybe someone will send me a post or a comment or share something. But I put myself in that uncomfortable situation. I took that risk and now I have a podcast. And that's what I'm just trying to get, my point across to this with overall success. And whatever you feel your definition of success is, go after it and don't let anyone stop you from getting it. But you are going to have to put yourself in an uncomfortable situation for quite some time, for a little period, until you figure out your groove. Okay. So let's kind of wrap up here with some final thoughts. As I mentioned, getting out of your comfort zone. Comfort zone is good to a certain degree, but if you want to grow, you have to expand and get out of your comfort zone, whether that's your circle, whether that's networking, whether that's starting something new like a business or learning a new skill. It's going to be uncomfortable. Think about that baby wobbling and standing up and, landing on their butt and scraping their knee and crying. That's going to be you when you're uncomfortable. But eventually you're going to learn how to walk and then you're going to start running and sprinting. So, another thing too is I always tell myself there's two things that are going to happen to me in life. And the first one is I'm either going to win or I'm either going to learn. In my eyes, I never lose. Losing is it's an experience. Losing is an opportunity to learn. So I always tell myself, and feel free to adopt, you're either going to win or you're going to learn. Okay? You're not a loser. There are failures and there are setbacks, but it's up to you and your responsibility to learn from those. Okay? I really like saying that to myself because that helps me motivate myself and keep going. So feel free to adopt it for yourself. Um, Definitely analyze your life, analyze what you're trying to learn and what you're trying to accomplish. One thing I almost forgot to mention with losing, think about someone who wins and think about, but let's talk about sports. You look at the person who won, and we'll say individual, let's say tennis. There's a tennis match, someone won. Look at what they do when they win. Look at their actions, their nonverbal cues. Look at what someone does when they lose, their nonverbal cues. When someone wins, they celebrate, they get the trophy, they say a speech, they go out, they party. When someone loses, they sit there, they ponder, they cry, they have the towel over their face because they're sad. They put their all into this tennis match. But you know what else they're doing that you don't see? They're processing, they're thinking. What went wrong? How did I lose that match? I'm good. I'm better than this person. What happened? They're thinking, they're learning. That person that won, they're not learning. They're celebrating. I won. The championship is mine. But that person who lost, they're processing. They're learning. They're going back to they're going back to learn. They're going back to process what happened. They're watching the tapes. They're watching their movements. They're talking to their coach. They may be updating their team, that coaches them. They're working on their diet. They're going back to the gym. They're getting bigger. They're getting smarter. That person that won, sometimes people that win, they don't do that. They just let themselves go. All right, I'm not gonna go, and sign up for another or sign a contract for another tennis match for another, couple years or whatever. I'm gonna sit this one out, which, they have all means to. They just won the championship, but that person that lost, they're learning, and think about that and watch that. If you watch sports or anything where there's a winner and a loser, watch what happens when that person loses. And sometimes that person that loses, they come back and they beat that person that won, or they continue on to beat other people because they remember that time when they lost and how it made them feel and everything that they had to process during that time. I wanted to share that with you. Okay. One other thing I wanted to share was the term no. No is getting you closer to what you deserve. Let's talk about seeking employment, which is happening a lot with people. When you get that rejection, it's a no. When you get ghosted by the recruiter, that's a no. When they don't want you to come in for the final round interview, that's a no. But it's getting you closer to what you deserve. It's getting you closer to that yes. It's hard to believe, but it is. And also, I was listening to something where someone said that the letters NO that spell out no is actually stands for or think about next opportunity. So you said no to me? Okay, what's the next opportunity? I'm not getting that next date with that hot chick. All right, that's cool. Next, what's the next opportunity? Okay, think about the N and O means next opportunity. It doesn't mean no. It doesn't mean this is the end. It just means what's the next opportunity. It may not be that exact path. You may have tried out for baseball and you got cut from the team. That was a no. But what's the next opportunity? I like football and I get to throw a ball around. Let me try this out. And you become successful, or you become, that's something that you enjoy and you got out of your comfort zone with that. Um, I'm just going to leave it at that. I really hope that this was helpful. I really want to touch on this on the podcast with this episode. Be comfortable being uncomfortable. I think it's a great tagline. I think it's great to think about that as you continue to grow. especially if you are that person that likes to take risk and wants to continue to learn things. But I really hope that this was helpful. I appreciate you watching. Like, share, follow, tag somebody with this. And as I always say, always follow your dreams. Thank you for watching.